I'm not sure what it is about the Salvation Army kettle, but I just can't pass it up. It's like I see the kettle, the ringing, I walk by, and I just immediately am attached to it. And the kettle ringers at the Jewel at 131st and LaGrange Road, they're nuts. I went there the other day, and the guy at this door, he's ringing the bell, and he's singing a Christmas carol. And he looks at, how do you pass that up? And so I try to go in this door and out that door so I don't pass him twice. And there's someone else over there singing Christmas carols. And on Tuesday, we have the Lenten suppers and stuff, and we had some all-youth stuff. And so I ended up, because I'm forgetful now, I ended up going to the Jewel 3 times. So I went in and out and in and out. By the end of the day, I'd spent $8 just on the kettle. And that was just one day. And I know there's other ways to donate, but for some reason, the Salvation Army kettle just reminds me that Christmas is about giving unto others. And I'm with Q the other night because he wanted to get some cereal. And so we go to Jewel, and Q says, "Hey, Dad, don't forget to put money in the kettle." And I said, "Q, maybe you could put some money in the kettle." And he says, "No, Dad, you're a pastor. That's your job." So generosity is not exactly his strong suit. And if you know him, you know it well. And I did get a letter from my classmate in Texas. And my friend who has religion in pajamas on Sunday morning. And he did notice that on a few occasions I've been giving out more than 2 things, and he felt sorry for me. And he says, "I know you pay for these things yourself." So he made that bet that if I could do 3 one more time, that I would get a check in the mail. And I actually got the check yesterday in the mail. A couple of weeks ago, one of you brought your granddaughter for the first time. And that was the last time I had my coffee pot out, and I gave all the kids $1. And on the way out, your granddaughter took her $1, and she looks at me, and she says, "Pastor Don, do you think that this $1 would make somebody else happy?" And I said, "More than you'd ever know." And one of my non-church going buddies, and I have several non-church going buddies, and he likes coming to church once in a while. And he tells me, "Don, it's a lot more fun to put money in the love bucket than it is in the offering plate. Because I don't know where the money goes when it goes in the offering plate." And I said, "Well, it goes to pay me." And I looked at him and I said, "I don't mean to lecture you, but I said, if it wasn't for the offering plate, there wouldn't be a love bucket. I mean, it would be somewhere else maybe. But I said, if we didn't pay the electric bill and the mortgage and the people that work here, there wouldn't be a love bucket on the table." And he says, "Well, you don't talk about money very much." And I said, "Well, money is something we all think about. And you know as well as I do, whether it's yourself or somebody else, that when money is tight, when you don't have enough money to pay your bills on time, it eats at your spirit. And you may not want to, but you think about money all the time because money is always an issue. And if you're one of those people that's fortunate enough to have enough money, and maybe sometimes more than enough, you know how good it feels to be able to share unto somebody else who doesn't have enough. So money is really a spiritual issue. And I've often said, I don't care whether you're a church or the Salvation Army or any other organization, the best way to raise money is to be an organization that people trust. I mean, my gosh, if you trust the church, if you believe in the church, if you believe in the Salvation Army, you're going to give. We don't have to make all kinds of charts and make you feel guilty, because when you believe in something, you want to make it work and you want to support it. And I know we all have images of what Christmas is like. And I'm sure for some of you, Christmas is the best time of the year, because sometimes you can get together as family and you can share gifts and you see people you haven't seen for a long time. But for other people, Christmas is the toughest time of the year, especially if it's your first. That first Christmas without somebody that you really love and care about. So Christmas can be tough. I think it was about 25 years ago when I met St. Coletta's Robert for the first time. He was a 19-year-old developmentally disabled young person, And they called me and asked me if I would run the marathon with them. Well, I ran the marathon, but he was way up in front of me. And at that time, he lived in a housing project with his mom and his sister and a bunch of other nieces and nephews. And I remember one time, our family got some presents together. And early one Christmas morning, I went to the apartment where he was living at that time. Drove into the inner city, it was in Englewood, and I got up to the apartment and it was pretty barren. And what was in the apartment was pretty old. And there were a lot of mattresses on the floor because there were a lot of kids that lived there. And as I was sitting there and distributing presents to some of the nieces and nephews, Robert's mother, who was there, said, "Robert, don't you think it would be nice to give the Reverend something to drink?" And I could see the panic in Robert's eyes. And some time when I said, "Robert, please give the Reverend something to drink." So Robert went into the kitchen, and he was there for quite a while. And he walks out with an old paper cup. And inside the paper cup was some stale beer. That is, in my lifetime, the only beer I never finished. And I lifted up the cup, and I said, "To Robert and your mom and to all of you, I wish you a very, very blessed and Merry Christmas." I said, "I will never forget this morning together." Robert would be in his 40s now, and I had not heard from him in 2 years. And I was worried that he was one of those young adults who doesn't really have it all together, who falls between the tracks, and I was afraid that maybe he was dead. And 2 weeks ago, the phone rings, and it's Robert. And he said, "Don, how you doing? And how's Quentin?" And I said, "Robert, where have you been?" And I said, "Do you have a phone yet?" "Oh, I'm getting one." I said, "You told me that 15 years ago. Get a phone. I'll pay for it." Afterwards, I drove home and I realized that Robert, I don't know if I'll ever see him again, but somehow, some way, in the simplicity of an inner city apartment with an old paper cup and a stale thing of beer, somehow he taught me, without trying to, what the real meaning of Christmas is. And then, the next morning, I get a call from Heartland, and little Zaylin, who we've been praying for, 7 years old, finally passed away after being in hospice. I didn't realize it, but Zaylin was the 37th child that has died in all the years that Heartland has been there. They have said goodbye to kids 37 times. So if I ever wonder why I write my offering check early Sunday morning for this place, I'll think of Robert and his family and that Christmas years ago, realizing that somehow this building makes stuff like that possible. And if I ever doubt if there's something on the other side after our journey is over, I'll think of Heartland. They've had to say goodbye when one journey is done and another begins 37 times. And I realize that giving comes in all kinds of packages. And this season, the manger is the greatest package of all. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed. It's on page 105.